Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to mumble! Introducing first, in the black corner, in his trademark office suit jacket tie, with a record of over 8,000 tax returns and 1,000 VAS statements lodged, standing 5'11" and weighing in at... He is the man with the tax plan, the sultan of spreadsheets, the baron of VAS statements, the king of ka-ching. Hailing from Ballarat, Victoria, Peter Angel! And in the white corner, sporting his struggling artist casuals, with a record of 1.5 feature-length films, 1 web series and numerous award-winning shorts, standing 5'10" and weighing in at... The Kubrick of Claptrap, the Mac Daddy of the MacGuffin, the Caesar of subtext, the champion of all things indie, the arrogant know-it-all Israeli bastard, now hailing from Melbourne, Victoria, the unpronounceable... How do you say this? Itai Guberman! Sit back and enjoy as they trade opinion jabs, fighting for their favourites and battling politely through the best and worst of... well, anything they see fit, really. The accountant versus the filmmaker. The financial consultant versus the artist. What can possibly go wrong? Tune in and find out on the Best and Worst podcast, where it ain't all black and white.
Hello and welcome to the Best and Worst podcast. My name's Peter Angel and I'm talking today with...
Hi everyone. Just a quick message to hopefully avoid any confusion and keep you all up to date. For those unaware, our Best and Worst podcast co-founder and co-host Peter Angel, whose voice you just heard welcoming you to the podcast, my close friend and business partner of almost 30 years, passed away in late March of this year. We recorded 9 episodes 0 to 8, which have all been edited, uploaded and released for you to enjoy. After some thought, I decided to continue the podcast in Peter's memory, as he loved it so much and it was really an enjoyable project for us to work on together, and I hope to make him proud. I decided to keep the podcast intro as is, at least for this season, and reassess at a later stage. All new episodes will include special guest co-hosts. I hope most of you will go back and listen to all the episodes with Peter co-hosting and get to know him a little more. I also hope you continue to support the podcast into the future and help us do this for Peter. The podcast started as a passion project involving 2 friends with a common interest and a desire to share that with the general public, which I hope to continue in that same direction. It won't be easy without Peter, as he was such an important part of this whole idea, but it will continue with him in mind and spirit and be just another way to keep his memory alive. Thanks for listening, and now, on with the show. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Best and Worst podcast. I am here today with my special guest co-host again, Asaf Angel. Hello, Asaf.
Hi, everybody.
If you don't know who Asaf is, you need to go back a couple of episodes and learn more about him. Asaf has been with the podcast since the beginning, helping behind the scenes, and now we have sort of started with a new, not exactly format, but with guest co-hosts. Asaf will be a frequent appearance on the podcast. Today, we have a bit of a special episode for Halloween, and we are actually looking at the Halloween franchise. How did you enjoy watching all 12 Halloween films, Asaf?
It was enjoyable for the most part and challenging because it was back to back.
Yes. It was watching a lot of films of I guess a similar type in a way, in a very short time, because I rewatched all of them. I have seen all before, aside for Halloween Kills, the new one. And yeah, it was definitely challenging, especially because I watched them in order of when they were made. So yeah, there's a bulk of films in the middle there that were extremely similar,
Yes.
which also made it tough to separate them in the the top 12 ranking. But as we do with every episode, I will first go through the IMDb rankings according to the way people rate and rank them on IMDb. And after that, I will look at the box office takings against budget and rank all 12 in that way. And then we will go into our lists of 1 to 12, or 12 to 1, actually. So on IMDb, the number 12 ranked film, so the lowest of the bunch, the worst Halloween film according to IMDb users and a lot of viewers was Halloween Resurrection from 2002.
Really?
It got a whopping 4 out of 10 average score. I am a little bit surprised by that, I have to say. It didn't rank so low on mine, I don't think. It's actually, I would have to say, kind of in my top half, I think. I really enjoyed that film, but again, we'll get back to talking about it a bit more later. This is the one, I believe, with Busta Rhymes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. This is sort of the Big Brother kind of take, one of those sort of reality shows idea injected into the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, and Tyra Banks.
Yep. Number 11 on the list is Halloween 2 from 2009. So this is Rob Zombie's second installment. It was number 11, second worst out of the list at an average rating of 4.8. Interesting. I'm not going to say whether I think it deserved to be at that spot or not, but I'm surprised to see it there a little bit at least. At number 10 was Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 95. This is the Paul Rudd one?
Yes, from 95, right?
95, yeah. It's actually a sort of a tie with Halloween 2 from 2009. They both rated an average of 4.8. So there's really like two films tied at 10 and then Halloween Resurrection at 12. At 9, we have Halloween 3, Season of the Witch from 1982 with a score of 5.0. Yeah, this one's a very, very strange one. Some people like it, some people don't. It is the one that stands out the most as potentially not belonging in the franchise. Again, there's no Michael Myers in this one.
It wasn't well received because people already, I think I read it somewhere, people already linked the Halloween franchise with Michael Myers, and they expected to see Michael Myers, and he's not there.
Yeah, I think the makers, I guess, of the series at the time when they thought about going forward, they were not locked in on Michael Myers being the center of it. It was more about Halloween, the Halloween season, you know. Sorry, what were you saying?
I think it looks like they were trying to build a Twilight Zone-y world around the Halloween season. They were probably thinking about making different types of films that move away from Michael Myers. They probably thought to see Michael Myers as one element in the franchise, not to be the franchise.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think they were looking to go in different directions. So the Halloween name would be on films that would cover sort of a larger area of story. And not stay in the same thing. But I think once the reaction came to it, they worked out very quickly that, this is a Michael Myers franchise. I mean, they did stick to the Halloween season in all of them, but they could have gone away from the Halloween season and had Michael Myers in it, and it would have worked better than, sticking with the Halloween season, but losing Michael Myers as they did in this film. Well, Michael Myers is Halloween as far as the franchise goes, because again, he's your serial killer monster character that it's exactly what everybody wants to see, which within itself is a problem. At number 8 is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989. It rated 5.1. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm not sure if I would have had this higher or lower. It is the one with Danielle Harris' character as Michael Myers' niece. This is the second one with her where she lost the power of speech for the majority of the film. At number 7 is actually a three-way tie from number 5. So 5, 6, 7 are all tied for number 5. And they are all with an average score of 5.8. And they are Halloween Kills from 2021, Halloween H2O, 20 years later from 98, and from 10 years before that, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers from 88. But yeah, they all sort of tied. I don't know if I expected that. I would expect Halloween Kills to make some sort of move up or down from this score as, more people score it because it's brand new. At number 4, with an average score of 6.1, we have Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007, his first one. At number 3, with an average score of 6.5, we have Halloween 2 from 1981, the first sequel. At number 2, we have Halloween from 2018, the second, I guess, reboot, with an average score of 6.6. So it just beat Halloween 2 for the number 2 spot. And at number 1, we have the original 1978 Halloween with a score of 7.7, which is a massive difference from anything below it.
Really?
The next from 7.7 to 6.6. That's a huge differential from 1 to 2. Apparently, the original is the best. I'd say it'd be fairly different to yours and mine. I think
it's insanely different.
Yeah, but that's sort of the way it goes. With IMDb. IMDb is not the be all and end all. It's just some sort of indication of what people think. Next up, I'll go through the box office against budget. Basically, how many times the budget the box office takings have been. It's really not a huge indication every time, of profit or loss, but it gives us some idea. Because it doesn't include any expenses they would have had or any money spent on things like marketing and promotion, and it also does not include any takings that it may have had from sales of physical media or streaming or merchandise. This is a very sort of simplified way of looking at it, but it still gives us a little bit of an indication. So as far as its success with box office versus budget, at number 12, so the least profitable, I'd say, film of the franchise is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989. It was made for a budget of $5 million, and it brought back at the box office $11.6 million. So 2.3 times its budget, which probably means it may have been somewhere around the break-even mark or maybe lost a little bit of money. I'm not sure. I would say that VHS or DVD sales at the time probably would have bumped it up a bit, plus whatever other sales they would have had with it would have brought it back to maybe some sort of profit, but not huge. Next up on the list at number 11, second last, is Halloween 2 from 2009. That is quite a surprise to me, I would have to say. It was made for a budget of 15 million, which at 2009 is not a huge budget, but sort of a decent, say, higher indie kind of budget. And it brought back 39.4 million, so just under 40 mil on a 15 million budget, putting it at 2.63 times its budget. It's a bit of a strange one, I'd say, because again, DVD and Blu-ray sales would have probably brought that up, but again, its marketing and promotion campaign would have brought it down. So this is a film that I would guess made a little bit of a profit. It didn't lose money, but I'm surprised that it didn't make a lot more than this. Again, because it was 2009, I would say, and the audience was sort of clamoring for it after the first zombie film. So this is the I don't know if I mentioned, but this is the second zombie film, Rob Zombie. Number 10 on the list is Halloween Resurrection from 2002. It was made for a budget of $13 million, and it brought back 37.7, say $38 million at the box office, at 2.9 its budget, really. Almost 3 times its budget, which probably would have put it just in the red. Yeah, it would have made a little bit of money. At number 9, we have Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995, made for a budget of $5 million and brought back $15.1 million. So 3 times its budget, I would say, made a profit. Again, not huge by those sort of standards of the time, but I think a lot of those films, anywhere between sort of the second or third all the way to H2O in 98, were made pretty much for the sort of VHS and DVD, sort of the rental kind of audience.
Yes, as well as diehard fans, I guess.
Yes, but they are the ones who would rent it over and over again, or buy the DVD, buy the physical media. It wasn't really made, I don't think, for cinemas. So the box office takings in that case are kind of okay. So that was number 9, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So number 8 on the list is Halloween H2O, 20 years later, from 98. It was made for $17 million. One of the probably the higher budgets in the series, and it brought back $55 million for 3.24 times its budget.
It's strange that all these are around the same returns, not the same, but around the same scale of returns.
You mean when compared to budget?
Yeah.
Yeah. These so far all range between 2.3 times the budget to 3.6 times budget. So yeah, to 3.24 times budget. The thing is with Halloween H2O, I think that it actually had slightly more decent sort of cinematic run than its predecessors. The films before it, not sort of discounting maybe the first ones or the first 1, 2, 3 maybe. After that, they weren't really made for cinema so much. But H2O, I remember it had a bit of a run in at the cinema. Again, it's the one that had LL Cool J, if I'm not mistaken, and of course
Jamie Lee
Jamie Lee
Curtis.
Curtis was a big one. Yeah, I think it was sort of pitted against the type of horror films of the time. They were starting to look a little bit different, sound a bit different. They were a bit sharper, a bit catering for a younger audience. It was a movie-going audience, so they were trying to get them into cinemas. At number 7, we have Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers from '88, made for $5 million and return of 17.8, so almost 18 million, 3.6 times its budget. So definitely, anything from here on is probably most likely, unless something weird we don't know about happened, they all made a profit. At number 6 is Halloween Kills from this year. It was made for a whopping $20 million, the highest in the series, which is still not a huge budget by today's standards. And we have to consider with this one that it is still in release, but it's already brought in 91 million, and that is 4.6 times its budget. Yeah, but some of the numbers here, I would assume, maybe potentially include also the new sort of streaming format, because it gets released at the same time or almost at the same time in the cinemas and on streaming platforms, kind of a VOD setup. So yeah, it's at number 6, but I would expect that one to at least jump into the maybe top 4 in the near future. At number 5, we have Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. It was made for $15 million and it brought back 80.5 million. So 5.4 times its budget. So as far as box office takings, yeah, it's the number 5 film in the series, which is a bit surprising considering number 4 is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, which was made for 2.5 million and brought in 14.4 million for 5.8 times its budget. But again, it's 2.5 million budget, so the returns don't have to be too much. It brought back under 15 million in box office takings to for an impressive profit. When you compare it with 2007, that brought 80.5 million. It's a bit different, but we're not looking at that. At number 3 is Halloween 2 from '81. Also a 2.5 million budget, and it brought back 25.5 million at the box office for 10.2 times its budget. So it's a fair jump, from Halloween 3 under 6 times the budget. Halloween 2 is over 10 times the budget. And at number 2, we have Halloween from 2018, which was made for 10 million and brought back a whopping 255.6 million at the box office. So 25.56 times the budget. By far the most money at the box office out of all of them.
Yeah, it's not. I can't say it's too surprising. Not because it merits it, but because Jamie Lee Curtis reprised her role again.
Yes, this one got a lot of sort of that social media, internet buzz, because of sort of the time it was released in 2018. All of this was at its peak, but it also has something going for it, that its budget is not huge. $10 million, surprisingly, I would say low, considering Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was made for 15 million. So I would have expected 2018 to have been made for at least double that, but it went the other way. But this 2018 is when Blumhouse took over and took the franchise in a different way. Blumhouse, that's sort of their MO. They tend to go with fairly low budgets to try and get some sort of a really decent box office taking, and hugely profitable system. So they stuck with that system, and it seemed to work with the 2018 version. And then again, Halloween Kills was made for double that at 20 million. So they had the money to spend, and so far it's brought over 90 million in a very fairly short time. So I don't know if it'll make, I could guess that it won't make anywhere near the 255 million plus that Halloween 2018 made, but still decent. They're still making a profit under this system. At number one, again, we have Halloween 1978, the original. This one's impressive on both accounts, both the budget and the takings. It was made for $325,000. There was no way I think this was going to lose money. It brought back in box office takings 47 million in the US alone, and the worldwide takings are been in question between 60 and 70 million dollars worldwide. That makes it anywhere between about 185 times its budget to about 215 times its budget, which is a massive difference to number two that's, under 26 times its budget. Most of that rests on having a $325,000 budget. So, well under $1 million, done very well. So this is the background as far as the box office takings and the IMDb, with Halloween 1978 being on top of both those lists, which takes us to our rankings. So do you want to get started with your number 12?
My number 12 is 1981's Halloween 2, directed by Rick Rosenthal.
Interesting. This one, I will not say where it is on my list, but it's higher than that.
I knew when you said the first one was made 300,000, 300-something thousand, I knew that the budget was extremely low. And the second one, it was made for $2.5 million. And I just felt it was, for what they had like 8 times the budget that they have. The first one, it was sort of poorly executed. It wasn't very interesting. It looked like they kept it a slow burn, even though they didn't need to. You can see in the film where the big money was spent on the effects that weren't really necessary, and it wasn't very good for the money they had and what they came up with.
I'm not sure I fully agree with what you're saying. I think that the budget going from 325,000 to 2.5 million is a jump. But again, 2.5 million is not a huge budget. And because the first one was so profitable, bringing 60 to 70 million, it sort of makes sense that they would want to invest, at least $1 million, maybe even up to $5 million in the second. But your point was that it was made straight after, so that the story continued as if they shot it like one film. They didn't. It was made 4 years later.
I know.
So again, it's not, I don't know, but the budget wasn't inflated. It was shot 4 years later for whatever the budget was. They didn't need to cut corners anymore and all the rest of it. And I agree, it's not necessarily as good as it can be when you compare it to the first one, but I think it's far from the worst on the list. I feel it's nowhere near the worst. It played more to my taste, I guess, as far as the film itself. I tried to kind of distance it from, budget talk and all of that, and look at it as a film. Almost similarly to the way I see the way you saw your 12. My number 12 is a film that I actually don't think belongs at number 12, but I kind of had to put it there because it's just so out of place. And that is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch from 82. I don't think it's necessarily the worst film, but I couldn't put it anywhere in the middle when I was kind of, playing with my rankings, because it just did not feel like it's part of the series. And also it has major shortcomings in the way of plot, which always pisses me off. So I felt that the plot was almost like a bunch of nonsense, really, and it didn't fully work. I enjoyed a lot of the film, watching it through as they were kind of investigating, trying to work out what's going on. But the more we found out about what was actually going on, the more I thought this is pretty rubbish. Yeah, not a very good film. It would always have ended up sort of in my bottom 3, which is why I ended up, dropping it all the way down to 12. Again, the film that does not have Michael Myers in it, it just didn't feel like part of the franchise. It felt like something else that they just decided to include into the franchise. It just felt like it had no connection at all to the other films.
It wasn't supposed to have connection. Yeah, that's the direction they went with. It's more like a sci-fi than a horror.
Exactly. And I kind of actually, like the fact that they tried to do something different with the franchise and try to take it, into different directions. But the fact that they didn't continue in this way shows that this did not work. And I thought it didn't work. Within the film itself. Like you said, it's something that, might belong in a Twilight Zone type of film, maybe. But there I would understand it because it goes with the theme. But after the first 2 films, having the Halloween name on it is almost, to me, it looks like they had no idea what they were doing. Because it just did not belong there. There's no connection to Halloween here, aside for the fact that it takes place during Halloween. It's not a Haddonfield film. It's not a Michael Myers film, the plot is nonsensical. It is really all bordering on stupid. And for the main part, to me, that is because they don't explain anything. It's like you have to take it for what it is. This is done like this, and why? Where is this technology coming from? Is there like some sort of an alien involvement?
They explain it poorly, but they do explain it. It comes from the material which Stonehenge is made from. That's its origin.
But that's what I'm saying. They could have said it comes from the planet Zargon. It doesn't really matter, you know. They don't really go into saying what it is, what it does, how it happens, and what happens is almost ridiculous. So the problem is really plot related. You know, when it comes to the mask, a beam sort of hits it from wherever, and something happens to the person inside it, and different things happen, and they have these like robotic people, and it follows on as well with the insects and snakes and whatever that come out of the mask. Had no logic to it whatsoever. As well as this has a problem that a lot of the earlier films had in the realism part of when people get killed or why. This is a theme that actually happens in a few films, where basically a car that catches any type of fire within within a second it blows up, or if it hits something it just explodes. A lot of that stuff was tough to take, and you know, with the other films maybe I found it a little bit more forgiving because the rest of the story followed some sort of logic that worked, but this one just didn't for me. But like I said, that's not what killed it for me. It's really the plot that didn't make sense. I'm saying the explosions thing, the killings, whatever, that happens in probably a good 6 or 7 out of the 12 films. So, you know, I didn't drop all of them down. But this one, again, because the plot was utter nonsense and it didn't work within the franchise. It could have worked as sort of a fun film if you look at it away from the Halloween franchise, but we are here to talk about the Halloween franchise and rank, you know, all 12 films in order. I don't feel this one belongs in this list.
I differ from that because I did rank it not very far from you, but I did rank it because I measured it as a film.
Which is fine. So what's your number 11?
My number 11 is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995. Paul Rudd one, directed by Joe Chappelle.
Yeah, that one's a strange one for me. I don't think it's far from that. It ranked a bit higher on mine. I forgot to mention before, by the way, that Halloween 3 was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Most films here were directed by different directors. I'll just reveal that Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers, was ranked. I ranked it number 8 on my list. It's not terrible. It's not great. And again, it's number 8 out of 12 on my list. So I'm not really like in total disagreement here or anything.
The script felt very rushed. It didn't make any sense. It was made 7 years after the fifth one. Sorry, no, 6 years after the fifth one.
Yeah,
so they had time
to 95. Yes,
89 to 95. They had time to, you know, percolate with new ideas, and I don't know why they did it that way. It wasn't interesting. It didn't have anything new in it, anything new that you'd consider to be interesting. I didn't think it justified that kind of an installment for that long between films.
I don't know. There was something enjoyable about it. It was a bit nuts, and it took a slightly different direction in the way it went. This is the one with the baby, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's right. With Paul Rudd trying to save the baby and all the rest of it. I'm not sure how I feel about it following on from it, because this was an introduction to Michael Myers' great nephew, I guess, the son of his niece.
The son of Jamie.
Danielle Harris. Yeah, in number 4 and 5. And in this one, it was an older actress portraying her. Yeah, there was something about the way it sort of ended. It went somewhere else again with the introduction of this sort of like a Michael Myers cult, who were trying to do something again with the baby, whether it was some sort of a sacrifice or not, and the way that the baby was saved with the characters that kind of, you know, Paul Rudd and I think 2 with him. There was one little kid and a woman, right? But I'm saying again, I just enjoyed something about it. As far as the viewing experience, I sort of threw everything else out the window, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to try to enjoy it, and I kind of did, and it didn't offend me that much. But again, by no means is it a good film. It was just good fun for sort of horror, and it was a little bit different from the other films, I have to say, as far as the story went. But what I didn't like about it was, again, the fact that after this one, the whole baby, whoever that baby became, was never mentioned again.
That's because they abandoned the storyline. They went in that film, they went hard on the whole mystical aspect of why Michael Myers is such a vicious killer and why he doesn't die. It's because there's a curse and because it's supernatural. They went with something that was far less interesting than what they could have done.
I don't disagree with that. I think that the script was lacking in many ways. I do think that the direction they were trying to go in was not a bad one, because it added something that does lack in the whole franchise, and that is explaining what the hell Michael Myers is. There's a lot of inconsistency in that character. Yeah. Because he does age, but he is impervious to pretty much anything. He gets stabbed, shot, burned. And he never dies, or he kind of dies, and then he wakes up and gets going again. But he does everything like a human being. But all of these other things, where he gets stabbed and where he gets shot in the areas of the body, that should actually stop him from continuing on in the way he does. Yet he walks normally. They made a lot of changes with him. I think in the first few films he was a lot slower. In later films he becomes a lot faster, even in his walking. I mean, he never runs, but just the walk and even the speed in which he fights and kills is much faster. Even today, after seeing the last one that was made this year, I'm still sort of going, okay, what the hell is Michael Myers? What is this thing? And why is no one sort of wising up to the fact that if we can't kill him, we need to do something else?
I think it boils down to the constraint that they have. They know one thing at the end of each film. Michael Myers needs to survive. He can't die because then the franchise dies. But nobody thought it through. Nobody thought it from A to Z how we're going to explain this. It feels like with each installment, they muster something up plot-wise and give some sort of less than convincing excuse as to why Michael Myers survives this one, instead of explaining what he is. It's a lazy approach, I think.
Yeah. A lot of it is just cause, it's because we decided this is how we wrote it, while he was being transferred in the ambulance, he came to life and killed everyone. The ambulance had an accident and, he woke up and killed everyone and moved on. It's like, but why, how, what, nothing.
Yeah, he walks perfectly fine. He has no nerve damage, even though he sustained what should have been fatal wounds.
Yeah. Okay, my number 11 is almost surprisingly Halloween Kills from 2021, from this year. This is one I kind of struggled with for a number of reasons. I just felt that with all the time that has passed and making this film now, like in 2020, 2021, whenever they shot it, 2019, it doesn't really matter. It's recent enough for them not to keep making the same mistakes. And especially when it comes to the script, I thought it was pretty terrible, and the dialogue is horrible. Halloween Kills to me has many issues, and again, just a lot of the characters, the way they were written, directions in the story, just very kind of almost inconsistent with any type of human reaction as I see it, especially the daughter character, Judy Greer.
Yes.
Yeah, Karen. Yeah, Laurie's daughter. Going from being a complete sort of non-believer to seeing it in front of her and sort of still behaving in the way she behaved. I mean, she was raised, it should have brought everything back, that whole sort of survival mode and all the rest of it. But to me, she still remained, even though now she knew it was true, she still kind of remained, I don't know, like her reactions to me were strange. Also, the daughter, Allison, we have to go out there instead of staying with her grandmother. All of a sudden, she wants to avenge people. I'm not going to mention which characters died. But I don't know. A lot of it just seemed weird. This whole posse thing that they sent, it's like sending groups of 3 to 4 people to catch Michael Myers, to kill Michael Myers. Like, are you serious? Like they've seen. I'm gonna go into a bit of a spoiler alert here. So anyone listening,
that's fine.
If this spoils it for anyone, please sort of tune out now and come back in a few minutes. After Michael Myers takes out a bunch of first responders, firemen with axes, firemen tend to be fairly tough guys who might, be able to take care of themselves. Forget the way he took them out, which I thought was a bit ridiculous as well, because it was like a Bruce Lee movie where people can attack him only one at a time. And it's like, come on. But if he took out all of these firemen, the way he slaughtered them, how do you send, 4 people to catch him? And these people going out with any type of confidence, yeah, we can take him out. I was like, come on, it was ridiculous. And especially that group of Allison, the daughter, the granddaughter, and her boyfriend and his father getting to the Myers house, and the father saying, I'm going in alone. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it was stupid. It
language.
was stupid. His son in the car, and he must have known, yeah, my dad's going to die now. That's
Absolutely.
what should have happened.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go in to die now, and you guys just wait in the car. That's what it was like to me.
For the next sequence. Wait in the car for the next sequence.
Yeah, and it's like, what?
Just to offer an olive branch to the film itself, they sent 4 people after Michael, and how can they think that they can beat him with only 4 people? I think that somewhere inside there, Michael is reluctant to kill his sister. He stabs her in the gut, in 2018, but he doesn't rush to kill his sister and her daughter, and not immediately, not the way he does with other characters. That's what it feels like.
Well, in a lot of ways, it seems like he doesn't even recognize that in these movies anyway. He didn't actually go after her. He was brought there by that doctor. And then when he sees her, it's like he recognizes her, but he's going to kill her just like he kills anyone else. And sometimes it seems like he toys with them. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes it's like he has the time to play with his food, so to speak.
Yeah,
and other times he doesn't. So I think it's fairly consistent in that way. But again, the way the carnage and the way he takes out people in this, and for the townsfolk to feel like, hey, we're just gonna have a bit of an angry mob and a bit of a posse, and we're gonna go out and get him. It was just like, what are you talking about? And this whole thing when they chase that guy at the hospital, it's Michael Myers. Evil dies tonight. Yeah, let's say that another million times in the script. That's not gonna annoy the viewer. I'm seeing like a ton of memes all over social media at the moment with Evil Dies Tonight jokes.
Yeah.
Because it was just that bad. It was just like it was written by high school kids. The angry mob in this film chasing the mental patient around the hospital thinking it's Michael Myers was ridiculous, because Michael Myers has been described many, many times over.
Yes.
He was about 6'3", 6'4", tall guy, slim, and just sort of a behemoth of a man.
Yeah.
And this portly, short, mental patient running around afraid of them, and them running after him, trying to kill him, to me was absurd. It's like, why would they think it's him? That scene when was it Anthony Michael? No, Anthony Michael Hall. Anthony Michael Hall? Yeah, yes, Anthony Michael Hall.
Hall.
Yeah, when he comes out of the bar with the baseball bat and approaches that car, and he looks into the car, and he could actually see the person inside it, and he goes, Michael? Michael? It's like, why would you think that's Michael? He does not look like anything Michael would look like. And why could it not be someone other than Michael just trying to steal a car? Let's go into the coincidence issue here. We have a couple of people in a pub, a doctor and a nurse, and well, full credit to them. The woman was the doctor and the man was a nurse. Oh, wow. Well done, equal opportunity piece. It so happens that the guy forgets his stethoscope and goes back in, gives the keys back to his car. Even though they're talking about a serial killer being on the loose, he lets his wife go into the car by herself. And so happens, this mental patient is in their car. A car that she just opened with the clicker, which means it was locked, which means it has an alarm. How did this mental patient break into the car? Why is he in their car? How did this happen? You know what I mean? Everything is just there's too much coincidence. Yes. If it was Michael, it would have been worse, but it wasn't. Yes. It was this other guy.
And you said it, there was a serial killer on the loose in their town. They recognized the roads that were shown on the news, and he lets his wife go to the car alone after all that.
It was seriously ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that dragged it down for me, and I was like on the verge of putting it last on the list. But with Halloween 3 sort of not really belonging, I ended up just dropping it below. Because again, Halloween Kills is production value wise, it's good. You can tell that whoever was behind it technically knew what they were doing as far as shooting a film and making it look a certain way. It looks fantastic, no problem.
Yes.
It's the script, it's the characters. I could not connect with the characters. And Laurie Strode was a character that I liked all the way through. In this one, I don't like her. I was like, you know what? It doesn't really matter to me if she lives or dies. Her daughter, her granddaughter, I couldn't connect with them in any way. They weren't likable. The officer played by Will Patton. Will Patton is a bit of a favorite of mine. Really good character actor who I've always liked. The way he survives in this was ridiculous to me because he should have lost too much blood and died. Forget about that. Why did he survive? There was no need for his character to be in this film because he didn't do anything. He was brought into a hospital bed, and that's where he was done. You know?
Yeah, and to boot, they made both him and Jamie Lee Curtis's characters. They made him in the script phone in their performances because they were in a room for the most part of the film.
Absolutely. And again, it's a lot of it to me just screamed pointless. Because why is this happening? Is this just the setup for the next film? Possibly, but I still have to judge it on this film. And for this film to stand on its own, it just doesn't. It's a mess. And all this and a lot more basically made me just not want to. I don't know. I'm not going to be rewatching this one. Let's put it that way. It's one of those films that I just think should not have been made. And if it was made, it should have been made by better people, or at least get some better writers, come up with some interesting ideas, make it a little bit interesting. You have characters here that survived certain situations and disappeared within the movie. It's like, why did they survive? There would have needed to be some reason for it. Will Patton's one of them. The woman that survived that whole situation in the park, Lindsay, the one who hid and he kept going. She should have had more of a reason to survive. But even the very ending of the film, again, if anyone's here spoiler sensitive, this is a major spoiler. But yeah, at the end, after the daughter Karen stabs him, and it looks like he's dead, and they're all looking over him, and it's like, again, another film where they look at his body and just pretty much wait for him to wake up again and kill them all, which of course he obliges, and it's like, how stupid. And Tommy Doyle's character in this was, I can't say that I'm like a huge Anthony Michael Hall fan or anything like that, but I do like him, and I've liked him in a lot of films. In this, his character is all over the place. He is way over the, in the acting and in the character is overacting. It's just not good. And the character of Lonnie, the boyfriend's dad, the one who goes into the house by himself.
Yeah,
he was actually quite sort of sympathetic, like of a character, like you kind of like him, and then he makes decision where you just go, yeah, just die, that's fine.
We should take notice that throughout the franchise, the men in the franchise, the good men in the franchise, are either incompetent or stupid. No man there has critical thinking that you can say, oh, this guy is smart, he knows what to do. It's only the women, and it's a theme throughout the franchise.
Well, sort of, but not really. Like, well, first of all, Loomis, at least the original Loomis. We'll go back to talking about the other Loomis, but no, when we get to it, Loomis was not an incompetent character, and neither was Paul Rudd.
His part there, yeah, I'm saying throughout the film, it's a theme throughout the film, and
for the most part. For the most part, I agree. I'm just saying there were exceptions to the rule. That's all.
They are exceptions, but their role in it. Paul Rudd, yeah, I'll give you that because he was there to save the baby. But Loomis's function in not just the film, in the franchise, was to build this halo around Michael Myers. This person can't be killed. He's evil incarnate. He's almost his fan.
Yeah, but not quite. The Donald Pleasance Loomis, especially, in the early films, he was put in there as the character of, I'm the only guy who can kill him. Even though, he repeatedly could not, because even when he did, Michael was never dead and came back. Up until the point Donald Pleasance died, that was Loomis's character. So, he wasn't so much a fan. He was just telling people that Michael is pure evil and he needs to die. And because
Okay.
evil dies tonight. But
I sorry. I say a fan, not as he admires Michael, but he talks about Michael in almost a thespian rhythm. He talks about Michael, he's evil incarnate. I don't remember his exact lines, but he talks about Michael in a way that you don't expect somebody who's hunting a killer to just pause every time and say these lines.
But to be fair, Donald Pleasance would have talked the same way, about a zucchini, because that's just how he talks. If you haven't noticed, he delivers his lines one at a time and just slow, and as you say, like a Shakespearean, thespian.
Yes, yes.
In
The
a
emphasis is
way.
on what he said, not how he said it.
Yeah, well, again, I think I expressed this to you off air about Donald Pleasance. I felt like he was trying really hard in the early
Yeah.
films, but yeah, even he couldn't save some of these films. This was really talking about Halloween Kills and bashing it, which is what we've done. But
Yeah.
but it deserves it. I feel. A lot of people say that this film was good and they enjoyed it and all the rest of it. Well, good luck to you all. If you enjoyed this film as a film, as a cinematic creation of sorts, then good luck to you. If you're saying, look, we just enjoyed it because there's a bit of blood and the killing is a bit different and more interesting, yeah, that's fine. As horror fans, I'm sure a lot of horror fans like it because Michael is cool and because the kills are okay and there's a bit more blood and he's a bit faster in this, and the way he sort of combats his victims, of the way he kills them, the way he actually moves and operates is a little bit different to previous films. I mean,
Yeah.
it probably started with 2018, but
No, it didn't. It started with
it
zombies.
didn't. Yeah, again, he's almost like a martial artist in this one, which is weird, but
Yeah, that started with 2018. He's a martial artist, but I think they took a lot of pages from Zombies' vision.
Well, they did kind of continue it from there, I guess, in a way. But yeah, as far as the cinematic kind of look, not necessarily the story. But yeah, look, I think Halloween Kills is probably by far the worst Michael Myers film because again, Michael Myers here is just incredibly inconsistent to the previous ones. There are issues with this character that also started in the 2018 version, but I'll talk about it when I get to where I feel that film belongs in the list. But I think the 2018 one is far better than the 2021 one, obviously. But okay, let's leave that one alone for a bit, and let's go to your number 10.
My number 10 is Halloween 2018.
Wow. Okay. I would have to say I'm not gonna say where it is on mine. It's much higher than that. So you thought Halloween 2018 was better than Halloween Kills 2021?
No. It was worse because it's number 10. Halloween Kills is number 9.
That's what I meant. I meant, do you think Halloween Kills is better?
Slightly better.
Wow. I'm very surprised.
Halloween 2018 had Jamie Lee Curtis reprise her role as Laurie Strode once again. They did it 9 years after Zombie. It felt pointless. The entire story leaned on iconic elements and iconic moments for the diehard fans. There was not much else past that, except for they tried to make Laurie Strode into Sarah Connor.
Yes, in a way.
And that's where that's it. It wasn't interesting at all. They didn't dive into any of the characters in a way that you say, yeah, I can relate to those characters. I didn't care about her daughter Karen and about her granddaughter. It just didn't matter. And the way that's the only film when we made the when I started watching the Halloween films, I've seen this film probably when it came out, and it took me like a few weeks to forget that I've seen it at all. You remember I had to remember if I had seen it before we made plans on making this recording. That's how pointless it felt to me. That's why it's the element with the angry mob and Halloween Kills. It's not good as you said, but I can understand. It shows at least some effort. They tried to give it some other aspect. There's the whole theme that evil is contagious, that people lose their minds. There's a theme in Halloween Kills that is non-existent, and actually it is existent. The doctor was a wannabe serial killer, the Loomis of the film. But they went with it in Halloween Kills, and at least it shows an effort. That's why I rated it higher. And Halloween 2018, of course, is in my number 10.
I guess it's just that I felt completely opposite. I thought that making the Laurie Strode character into sort of a Sarah Connor was a good idea. I thought that it was slightly different. It sort of justified the however many years later this was. It was like 40 years after, what happened in Halloween 2, I guess. That was not a bad direction to go in. Whether it's interesting enough or not, it was sort of remained to be seen when you watch the film. Now, the film has its issues, no question. But overall, I think it's one of the better films in the franchise. I actually rated it really highly. And I would say, well, it's my number 3. I felt that this film had some technical, say, prowess that other films didn't have before it. Probably before the Rob Zombie films, I think we haven't seen such such of a look of filmmaking, I guess, and production value. And yeah, I thought that the twists and turns in the story about Laurie Strode, the way she raised her daughter, the way she is with her granddaughter, I thought there were interesting layers. I still thought that they didn't tell enough of that background. There were details missing. Who was Karen's father? Was that mentioned in any way? I don't think so.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it's like, what happened there? Did she kind of settle down? Why would she even have kids?
It was stated that she got married and then she got divorced because she's such a mess that she.
Yeah, but that is inconsistent with this character. This character is very absolute about what is going on, what life is, and the fact that Michael Myers will keep coming. She prepares for him her whole life. A person like that would not go and have a child to bring them into this reality. I thought that's a little bit of a flaw. As far as the relationship between mother and daughter and mother and granddaughter, I thought it was kind of okay, kind of interesting. There were little flaws in this one and bigger flaws and whatever. There was one that especially made me sort of sit up, take notice, and want to throw popcorn at the screen. And again, I'm going to say this: with all the flaws that I saw in this one, I still thought it was better than a lot of the other films, which is why ranked it so high. But Michael's escape was kind of BS. And the reason for that is that Laurie Strode had years and years and years to prepare for this. There's no way that she couldn't think, hey, he could just get into that sort of gun closet, and lock himself in there. She should have thought of that.
But they don't explain. They don't explain that.
They don't. But it makes sense why he survived. It doesn't make sense why it was there in the first place. There was no need for the guns to be that protected. That whole room was protected. So she didn't need to put them in this special, a cabinet would have done something that Michael can't fit into. Instead, he has like this little room, and I thought that was terrible. It was, there were lots of things like, does Michael Myers have a built-in GPS to whoever he wants to find? The fact that he turned up at that gas station to get at those 2 reporters or whatever they were, journalists, how did he find them? The man was getting around on foot. They were driving around. Yet he spots them somewhere and follows them to the gas station on foot. He knows where they are, how to find them. Made no sense. And I'm thinking, this is such massive, plot holes. I was just baffled as to I don't know the whole thing. The thing with the mask. So people holding up the mask is calling you, Michael, isn't it? What? And that's the GPS explanation, I think, as to how he found them at the gas station, was that he came because the mask was calling him.
It doesn't hold. The explanation doesn't hold.
Of course, he escapes
he escapes long after they leave.
No, he escapes while he's being moved again because Michael was in a high security prison and he was being held for what they say is like, I think 40 years, they say, and he doesn't escape for 40 years. So they think it's time to move him. Why? Beats me. Why they move him at Halloween is again too much of a coincidence in the story. Everything that happens with moving him has to happen at Halloween. Couldn't it happen at a different part of the year? Why wasn't it happening at Halloween? Yeah, again, coincidence? BS.
Yeah, you could say that his doctor wanted him to escape, but nobody explained it thoroughly.
Well, the doctor must have had something to do with it, but that's only in hindsight.
Yeah, you could say that, but I said before, the film rests on the iconic moments. The moment where he puts the mask. They did this entire scene to show him get reunited with his mask.
Mm-hmm.
Bull crap.
There was also another thing, it's like he must have the best intel. It's almost like he is, I don't know, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, and he has a bug in his ear, and someone is sitting in a control room telling him where everybody and everything is. How did he find her the girlfriend, the babysitter? He goes and finds actually the granddaughter's friend, who's babysitting. How? Why? Why did he go after her? How did he even know about her?
That's I agree.
It's like, oh, coincidence. Yeah, he just went by and this is the house he landed on. Really?
Yeah.
So again, this type of logic, I think, follows from 2018 and on to Halloween Kills.
I think with characters like that are surprising as into how Michael knows to kill them, they're supporting characters. They're in the circle of characters in the film, and it's like checking a box. They need to die, and Michael needs to kill them. Why? It's has nothing to do with logic, but it's a kill sequence. He needs to kill them.
Which is fine, but again, it's the level of coincidence is too huge that he ends up running into these characters that are friends with his granddaughter, and even his granddaughter herself. He kind of bumps into her. It's not like he's looking for her or anything. He
His
doesn't.
grandniece.
What? Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's not supposed to even know about her, that she exists. So he's not really looking for her or following her, but he ends up, she ends up in his path somehow, and her friends end up in his path even before then, and they get killed, and it just makes no sense. And this again also happens throughout the franchise. It's not just these two films, but yeah, in every sort of incarnation of the franchise, every reboot, they follow the same lack of logic. The thing is about the 2018 and 2021 version, the Blumhouse versions, I have to say I was actually kind of excited that they're going to take over the franchise and take it in a different direction, possibly. Although, like I say, a lot of the same mistakes are being repeated again. It has a different look. I like the direction of the Michael Myers character being a bit different, even as a killer. But they needed to establish that somehow, and it never did. It just is. A lot of stuff is just cause. Again, just take it. Because we put it on the screen, you need to take it. They did well with the 2018 version, and then I think 2021 was a big fail. And it follows on from the same thing that you and I talk about a lot, and that is that scripts are very, very poorly written these days. It's like they need to make a film in a hurry. They are only concerned with getting it out there because people will watch whatever they are given. And for the most part, I guess they are right. So it's the blame of the production companies and the writers they employ or what they are told to write, and also the audience. But that's the reality of it. We can't really talk about that too much right now, and we're not going to change that. We just have to keep trying to make the films that we think should be made. But with regards to that, I think Blumhouse, in similar fashion to Rob Zombie, did a good thing and then ruined it, which we'll talk about the zombies coming up. But yeah, they can't consistently make good movies within this franchise. I know that there's another film coming, next year or the year after Halloween Ends, and I hope that's where it ends, because they really need to do something different. If they're going to reboot this franchise, they need to actually reboot it, differently. So yeah, that's my take on Halloween 2018, which is your 10th,
Number 10.
yeah, and my third. Huge discrepancy between us, but that's cool. My 10th is Halloween 2 from 2009. The Rob Zombie second film.
It's my fourth.
Your fourth? Wow. Okay. The thing is with this one, in similar fashion to the Blumhouse thing, I think that Rob Zombie started off really well with his first one in 2007, and this was I don't know, a downward spiral. I thought it was a terrible film. I thought he tried to cram too much into the story and just put in things because he wanted to put them in, i.e. his wife. A lot of people criticize him for having her in every one of his films. I actually don't mind that, because I think, why else would you be a filmmaker? If your wife is an actress, you would want to work with her. That would make sense perfectly.
Not just your wife, people who you like. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. I know, but they don't criticize him for the other actors. They criticize him for her. It's sort of developed a bit of a dislike for her for some reason with people. I don't see it. I think she's very likable. I don't have a problem with her at all. And I don't have a problem with him putting her in his films. Sherry Moon Zombie. In this one, I have a problem with the character that she was given. He shows her in flashbacks. I thought it was put in there for that reason, to put her into the movie. He also brought in a different kid to play the young Michael, because the other kid, I assume, has grown too much. And the other kid was much better. This one didn't quite, fit for me.
No.
But that whole side of the story, with the white horse and the mother character coming back and kind of not really being the mother character, but being what Michael wants her to be. And then Scout as Laurie, I thought she acted well. Like, I think she's a good actress, but I think they made her into an annoying character, especially in this one, in the second one. This sort of rebellious side of her and frustrated with life and where she is, and with the Danielle Harris character who plays a friend in this one. I didn't buy it, the whole thing with the shrink. And the big thing that really made me go, all right, come on, this is just not right, was her seeing the same visions as Michael. They had shared visions. That didn't make any sense. The fact that she could see the mother and the white horse and Michael, the kid, and physically he was holding her, and she couldn't move. That was an aspect to the story that made no effing sense. It just didn't belong there.
The reason why I ranked it as number 4, because it's in comparison to the other films. Now, I agree that if I have to say it in a sentence, Rob went too meta. With the second one, he put too much of himself, of his vision and style. He tried to go in, to have a philosophical aspect on the film, and it's still riddled with errors and very illogical elements. I still give him credit for trying to give the audience something that has to do with what happens in the mind of a psychopath. I agree that the shared visions and the mystical element had nothing to do with it. I agree that Laurie Strode's character was annoying, to say the least. I got to a point where I actually waited for Michael to kill her. It wasn't very good.
Yeah, but that I think that's to me where it would, like, the fail is bigger than the other fails of the other films, because other films were met with different obstacles to the production I'm talking about. They had smaller budgets.
Yeah.
They were in years that didn't have the same technology or the same knowledge of script writing or whatever else. The other films also, may have had like more inexperienced directors, cast, everything was different. It was done more sort of indie, low budget way, even if it wasn't necessarily low budget for the time. But it kind of was, actually, but doesn't matter. Knowing now, not knowing then what we know now, and Zombie, even after making a pretty good, first film, went on to make a shitty second film. I just didn't see any way of forgiving these types of mistakes. It's not just that he put too much of himself, and I didn't see this as going meta or anything. To me, it was so obvious that the reason that this was written into the story was that he could put Sherry Moon Zombie in the film. I don't think that the motivation behind taking the story in this direction was anything but that. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one to stomach, because, again, even if I was willing to play along with it for a certain run of the film and go, yeah, it's a look into the inside of a mass murderer, of a serial killer or whatever, the shared visions between him and his sister made no sense. The fact that they materialized and were physically stopping her and whatever, that to me was like, what? I'm watching it and I'm thinking, what am I watching?
Yeah,
Who wrote this? How does this make any sense?
I
And
agree.
the other reason that I ranked it so low was Dr. Loomis. Dr. Loomis in the earlier films is a character that, while he has, we have our misgivings about him because of his motivation to get Michael sometimes trumps his motivation to actually protect people. In this one, he's just a right asshole. And his only motivation is really fame. Everything else is secondary. He is like despicable. It just, why make him that? I did not understand why the change. The change did not come into the film to have an interesting impact on the story, aside for the fact that he wrote the information into the book that Laurie didn't yet know.
I think that he made Loomis into a capitalist prick is because he wanted to give some sort of a redemption arc. Comes to help at the end, but that was too little too late. But still, even though, as I said before, it's riddled with mistakes and unforgivable illogical elements, it's still, I understand what he was trying to do. And in comparison to the lack of thought, lack of vision in almost all the rest, that's why I ranked it as I did. That's why I think he deserves to be in the top 4, because he tried to do something completely different. He didn't succeed, but he tried. He did something that most of the writers in the other films didn't try. They just wanted to just give you a slasher film.
But the thing is, in the first one that he made, which I don't want to talk about yet because I want to get to it on my list, he succeeded, in making changes that learned from the mistakes of earlier films. In this one, he just made his own mistakes, like new ones. I just don't see it as forgivable. I think that ranking it 10th was a tough one. I have to say the bottom 3. I think that Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is actually the better film of the 3 in some ways. Those were my bottom 3. No matter what, I couldn't move them past those other films, because again, the other films, there's an issue of intent and what the films wanted to make and what ended up happening. There's an issue of intent. I think the earlier films were not meant to be taken seriously, and these they were made as sort of more serious horror, I guess is a way to look at it. The second of both reboots failed miserably. I thought that both, first films in both sort of reboot attempts did well, and then just failed miserably. That's sort of my take on those, and that's why they would have never made it out of the bottom 3 for me. Where are we on your list?
I think we are at my number 8. I don't know how we got to skew numbers, because I talked about my number 9, which was Halloween.
What's your number 9?
My number 9, although I mentioned it before, it is Halloween Kills. It's right above Halloween 2018. I said I rated it higher than 2018 because I understand that they were at least trying to give a different aspect, a different spin on the whole Michael Myers frenzy. People lose their minds because of what Michael is doing, and they presented it as if this is what Michael wanted to happen. I'm not saying it's good. I agree with most of the points that you talked about. I'm just saying Halloween Kills was a less worse installment.
Okay. As I said, to each their own. Again, it's like I guess it depends on what your pet hates are, in a way. What irks you more? Because there's issues with almost every film here, that the negatives don't necessarily outweigh the positives, but it comes close at least. Yeah, it just depends on what you find more important, and I don't just mean you and me or whatever, anyone who watches these films. It would kind of depend on where they place importance in filmmaking or in their how they like their horror films or how they like their movies in general, and etc. So yeah, it all makes sense. So that was your number 9, right?
Yes.
Yeah. My number 9 is actually Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers. Yeah, it's one that I just didn't enjoy as much, I guess. I found lots of issues with it, lots of problems in the story and in the way it was presented. The fact that it ranked, I guess, this highly in a way, outside of, the top, the bottom 3. I keep calling them the top 3. It's the bottom 3. Was probably some characters were likable. Tamara Glynn playing Samantha Thomas was a likable character to me. Again, Danielle Harris, I had an issue with the fact that they made her unable to talk in this one, and didn't quite explain it. It was really just the trauma, but that's it. They didn't quite go into it as to what exactly happened with her. I have to say, I found the whole niece thing with her, Danielle Harris I really like, including that her character here, or basing these two films on that character in a way. I just didn't get it. It's like I thought, what are they going to just keep going down the family line? Michael Myers, looking for his great, 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 great sort of grand nieces and nephews or whatever. I don't know. It just kind of didn't feel like enough to base the story on. The reason for him to go after her didn't make sense because they keep finding relatives in following films. It's like there's no real reason why he goes after them. Not really. Don't forget, Michael Myers also didn't kill his parents. So does he have this issue with his niece? It made no sense. So much that it's his main motivation. But again, that's in the previous movie, in
Yeah.
number 4. In this one, it's I don't know. I liked it a bit, and I didn't like it enough. I liked some of the characters; they did come off likable. Like I said, especially the Tamara Glynn character, I liked. In some ways, even Bo-Star as Sheriff Meeker. I like the actor. I didn't quite love the character. I like Donald Pleasance, but in this one he wasn't probably as good as previous ones. I don't know if to say he was phoning it in. I think he was still trying. It just he couldn't really save this movie. Overall, there was some endearing qualities to it, like the fact that they introduced I forgot his name, the other boy who's her friend. Was it Mikey? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. He had a stutter, and he really, really liked him.
Yeah. Just that, but at the same time, it gave the film almost like a Goonies quality, and even the kills were a bit more playful than scary.
There's even a scene there where Michael changes the color of the hair on his mask. You see his mask turn to blonde and then turns brunette again.
I have to say that the change of masks around this area of films between sort of the 4th to the 6th, I did not like. At one point, they even went away from the William Shatner mask. It was a different mask. It wasn't that anymore. He looked completely different. I don't know why. I think that it may have had to do with the rights or something. But it just, it wasn't great. Was it Billy the boy? Billy?
I don't remember.
Doesn't matter.
And we should. We just saw it.
Yeah. But again, I saw so many of them. It's tough to kind of keep track of certain things. But it was not great. It was like the IMDb rating for it was 5.1. I think that's about right. Yeah. It's not fantastic and not horrible for me. So
it's my number 7.
Yeah, not terribly far. Like I said, it was very, very difficult to separate from about 5 to 9, I'd say. Maybe more 6 to 9 for me, but yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those 4 films were tough. Yeah. So what's your number 8? Or do you have anything else to say about Halloween 5?
Halloween 5, I said it's my number 7 for a lot of the same reasons that you talked about. I just rated my number 8 to be Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, because I said before that I ranked it as a film, not as a Michael Myers, not as a Halloween film. Season of the Witch is my number 8 for a lot of the same reasons you talked about, and I put it there because in comparison to other films, that's where it stands, because I did like the fact that they tried to take a new approach to the Halloween franchise, and I did appreciate that they went sci-fi with it, horror sci-fi, but also everything that you said, it didn't make any sense. The plot progression didn't make any sense. No proper explanation was given to many things, many elements.
It's almost just sci-fi, actually. There's not really that much horror in it, I have to say.
I think the emphasis wasn't on the horror part; it was on the shock.
Yeah,
it was on the gross shock effect.
Yeah, and the one scene where a robot, android, I don't know what to call him, part man, part whatever, ends up killing and getting out and going into his car, pouring petrol on himself and lighting himself on fire. And as he lights himself on fire, the car explodes.
Sorry. I said before,
it's just funny.
Yeah, it is. They had that in Halloween 2 from 1981, where a police officer runs over Ben Tramer, who was mentioned in the first one, because he looks like Michael Myers. Just so happens a guy is wearing a blue jumpsuit and a Michael Myers mask, a combination that who doesn't know about in 1981, sorry, and the police officer runs him over and the car...
But actually, he didn't even run him over. He actually pinned him to a van.
Yeah, and then they both go up in flames, and he doesn't...
Yeah, and the car, of course, explodes. It's like, why?
Yeah. Well, I asked questions before that. Why didn't the cop break? He didn't break. Just ran the guy over because of reason.
Oh, lost control. Yeah. They don't
Yeah,
have to
that's the
explain
control.
anything. That's just how it is,
No.
Just cause we got to swallow it because it's there. That's just how it works.
It was preceded with the sheriff screaming to stop that man because he thought it was Michael Myers. And I don't know how the police officer in the car that ran him over heard the sheriff try to stop him because he was too far. But, they wanted to show you an effect of a car exploding because they had $2.5 million to work with.
So just getting back on track. Halloween
Sorry.
3 is your number 8.
Is my number 8, and my number 7 is Halloween 5. Is what you ranked as your number 9.
Okay, so my number 8 is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. That's the as we call it, the Paul Rudd one. And again, I thought it was riddled with issues and problems, and from script or anything else. I thought that bringing back the Danielle Harris character, but not Danielle Harris in that role, because again she was a lot older in this one, was probably not necessarily the right move. Also, she had a baby. Again, no mention of a father because fathers are not important. She had a baby and was trying to keep it from Michael Myers and that cult, and Michael Myers kept going after the baby. Why? I have no clue. I don't know if he knew. I don't know if it made any sense. But after this film, that whole baby angle was completely dropped. The baby was never, spoken about again, never appeared again. Yeah.
They changed the franchise after that film.
But it had a different element to it, I think, when they were in that lab and trying to fight Michael Myers, the three characters, Paul Rudd and the girl and the boy. And it felt a little bit like Nightmare on Elm Street. That whole thing where the kid's hiding and Michael's trying to get through the pipes, to get at the kid, and they fight him from behind him with electricity and that whole lab. It just looked, in the look, I think it was a little bit like a dream sequence from Nightmare on Elm Street. And I enjoyed it. I actually had fun with it, and I had fun watching Paul Rudd, even though he wasn't Paul Rudd yet. He didn't have that
no
smart ass thing about him that is just so likable. Was missing. He wasn't trying to be funny. He was serious, but he's still so likable, and I enjoyed watching him. And that just made it a little bit better than some of the other films for me. I would have to say that 6 and 5 are fairly close. My number 7, which are my 8 and 9. Halloween 6 is my number 8. Halloween 5 is my number 9, but they are very close, I thought. And my 7th is also close to those, and that's number 4, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
We're pretty close. We're one aside. My number 7 is 5, and my number 6 is 4.
Well, that's the thing. I felt 4, 5, and 6 are almost interchangeable, in a ranking or anything like that. Because in 4, that was the one where they introduced the Danielle Harris character, which was kind of interesting. I needed it to go somewhere, which it kind of didn't. And again, he needs to get at his niece just because she exists. The ending is really the big talking point of this film, which I thought was not great. I didn't understand the reason how or why, he has some kind of a mind control thing over her. And in a way, in the following film, in number 5, it's not there anymore.
Well, there's a reason why I think they came up with the whole sequence where she stabs her stepmother, because it's not that Michael Myers has some sort of mind control. If you remember in the first one, Michael stabs his sister, and when they find him in the street, first they're wearing similar costumes. Michael Myers is a child in Halloween 1.
The clown costume.
Yeah, the clown costume. It's like he is possessed by some higher power. He stabs his sister and something comes over him, because when they find him as a child after stabbing his sister, he looks disoriented. He looks like he didn't know what he was doing. And the same thing they tried to play with it in the 4th installment, where the Danielle Harris character stabs her stepmother. And it just, in the film, it wasn't presented in a proper way because it came out of left field. They saved it for the last bit with no explanation. That's why it made people raise an eyebrow.
Well, it was meant as some kind of a twist, but It really wasn't, and it wasn't well written and well included in the story, because they do follow it in a way in the next one where she is connected to Michael. She can sense him, she can feel him coming, she can feel where he's going and what he's after. None of that made sense. There was just no explanation, and apparently none necessary. Again, to me, that's where the big fail of these films. Also, where she stabs the mother at the end, they didn't quite show us what happens. In the next one, we find out that she did survive it.
I think they had a change of heart between films, and they were made consecutively in 1988, 1989.
Yeah, so. And the stepsister, I guess, her older stepsister, she was very forgiving.
Yeah,
nobody blamed the girl like they blamed Michael, and that I found strange. It has an inconsistency, that we're bringing up here. That Michael Myers, when in the first film he stabs his sister, kills her, straight away. That's it. He's done for life. He's going to be in mental institutions, for the rest of his life. Whereas the Danielle Harris character, his niece, she does the same thing and doesn't have to suffer the same punishment. She is coddled and basically taken to some kind of an institute, but is treated very, very differently. Jamie was her name. I think that's why they made the change in the fifth film, where the mother didn't actually die. She stabbed her mother, but she didn't kill her, which is why the punishment is not as severe. And everybody treated her as if Michael did it, not her, but she stabbed him, and the connection or his control over her or whatever is just never really fully explained. For whatever reasons, I just enjoyed it a little bit more. I thought that Donald Pleasant's character was still right, which kind of made it work for me in some ways. I don't know. Again, the like I said, 4, 5, 6 fairly interchangeable.
With respect to what you said, I think that the Donald Pleasant's character, the Loomis character, watching these films back to back, it gives a feeling that this man has no life. He has no home. He always wears the same clothes. He exists just to hunt Michael Myers. We don't really know anything about Loomis. He's a psychiatrist, and he's a homeless person in Haddonfield.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can sort of imagine and explain that, he bought a house, he moved there, for whatever reason to wait for Michael from one Halloween to another. But yeah, it doesn't really hold water. I agree. So, okay, so I guess this takes care of our 7 to 12. So our bottom half. We're up to my number 6, but we already have your number 6. Yeah. So we're up to my number 6. My number 6 is Halloween 2 from 1981, which was your 12th.
Yes.
Yeah, fair discrepancy, I guess, in the way we see it. I agree with a lot of things that you said about it, as far as being the follow-up to the first, and I guess it should have been more different. Also, it got a substantially bigger budget. They went from 325,000 to 2.5 million. It gives you the ability to do a lot more, and they didn't. Do a lot more from the first to the second. I agree with that. But again, I look at it as a film within itself. It is not so bad compared to all the other films. It is actually a bit better in the way of acting. This was the first film that had that sort of hospital setting, and I think they kind of did well with it. It was mostly sort of interesting, a little bit tense. It had the usual sort of horror slasher tropes, about, for some reason, some nurses, male nurse or female nurse, decide, of course, to have sex at the hospital. Makes sense, which is where Michael finds them and kills them, which is always the case when people try to have sex.
And he strangles the guy behind a glass door, and the girl is standing 3 feet away, and she doesn't hear anything.
That's fine. That she didn't hear anything. That was fine, because again, those doors sometimes, and she was next to a bubbling bath. So, but again, it didn't matter. The way they died was fine. It was just more about the fact that they needed to squeeze in at a hospital. I get it. It's a small town and it's slow and whatever, but 2 nurses going to have sex together. Yeah.
He wasn't a nurse. He was a paramedic, but.
Yeah. You're right. He was a paramedic.
If you're talking about that, then I'll say that the young man who was infatuated with Laurie Strode, the young paramedic, who is, like I said before, an incompetent male character. He gets injured by slipping in a pool of blood of one of Michael Myers' victims, of of the head nurse, and that's the end of his contribution to the film. He tries to save Laurie by getting into his car. She hides in his car. Doesn't succeed, of course. He just puts her in more danger when he collapses on his car horn. If they hadn't ridden him in the film, it might have been better.
There's one thing that you forgot to mention, though. When he slips in that pool of blood, he does it from a standing position.
Yes.
I rarely see that happen. People turn. I didn't realize that blood was that slippery. That you just stand in it and you slip and fall, hit your head on the ground, pass out, and we don't see him until that last scene.
There's a shot in there that made me realize that they put almost all the emphasis on composition, not even aesthetics, but composition of shots. There's a scene where he talks to a nurse as they both stand at the entrance to a room in the hospital, and he talks about what they need to do with Laurie. And Michael Myers is in that room. He's hiding behind a curtain, and he's looking at the both of them, and you see him in the foreground, and you see them in the background. Now, they're both looking in that room. And there's no way in hell they can miss the silhouette of the 6'3" dude hiding behind a curtain with a light behind him. Well, this shot was absurd.
Well, they weren't looking directly into the room. They were talking, and then the thing is, they also showed it from the other angle where they're in the foreground and he's in the background, and we can clearly see his silhouette. And there was no way that he didn't get their attention. I agree.
Yes.
But again, we're kind of nitpicking when it comes to this one because that kind of detail I could let go. I'm like, yeah, I could let that go. But the rest I'm not so sure. My problem was more, say, when I think it was Laurie's character who was crawling outside when the car arrived with Loomis and a couple of other people, the sheriff maybe or someone. Not the sheriff, the guy who was supposed to transport Loomis out of town. Yeah, he was some kind of sheriff or whatever. He picked him up. He was supposed to take him back to wherever he came from. He came with another woman. As they arrive to the hospital and they walk in through the door, Laurie is crawling from the car on the ground, and she can't scream until they go in and shut the door. Then she screams, which of course they can't hear her. And I'm like, why couldn't you scream before? The survival instinct in her apparently does not exist because she had no voice at that point, and she only regained her voice when they were already inside. And I thought that was a bit ridiculous. Again, I think it's better than most films in the franchise. I thought it would go higher than 6 for me, but 6 is where it ended. So let's go into the top 5. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Halloween H2O, directed by Steve Miner.
My number 4.
It's when they changed the franchise. They made it more urgent, the horror sequences, and they made a proper horror film. The story itself, nothing special. They changed venues. Very nice. Private school. Josh Hartnett, LL Cool J, fine. Better acting, but the story is the same. The whole film sits on the iconic reprisal of Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode and the iconic moment where she sees her brother again after 20 years. And that's it.
Yeah, in some way, yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, but you forgot a few people. You mentioned, yes, Jamie Lee Curtis making her comeback in this one to the franchise, and Josh Hartnett playing her son, who of course does not return to the franchise either, because in the next reboot or whatever she has a daughter, so whatever. And LL Cool J, but there is also Adam Arkin and Michelle Williams, and cameos by both Joseph Gordon-Levitt for a very brief appearance, and well, not that brief actually. You could definitely he gets a bit of meat on that role, and then Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, has a cameo in this, which was interesting. But yes, you are correct in saying something we've discussed before. This was the movement of the franchise into the current generation of horror fans. It was directed by Steve Miner, who's made a lot of other horror films over the years, including a few installments in Friday the 13th franchise, as well as House, Warlock, he's also made a few non-horror films, but I think he was sort of mainly known for horror, and he's made some stuff for TV. After H2O, he also made Lake Placid, which was a pretty good horror film. So again, I think they made a move into the sort of more current mainstream, sort of horror mainstream of the time, which was largely dominated really by the Scream franchise and films like, I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legend and that kind. Looking for a sort of a younger audience. So the film had
I think they came out in the same year. So.
Yeah, but I think if I remember correctly, the mask was wrong in this one. But yeah, again, it's a very sort of simplistic way of doing the film, but I enjoyed it. It was when you're going out to watch a horror film and you're not expecting it to be necessarily an artistic or great film, you just expect it to be entertaining, and it kind of did that. It wasn't too bad at all, which is why it ranks fairly highly on yours and a little bit higher on mine. My number 4, your number 5. Yeah. My number 5 is Halloween Resurrection, which in the likability factor, it was very similar to number 4 for me, because it was, again, another film for that generation. It had not LL Cool J this time, but Busta Rhymes. So, brought in a popular rapper at the time, musician, let's say, rapper. It was sort of, I don't know if to say catering, but the storyline went in that way of the whole Big Brother reality TV kind of thing. There's also an element to this one that didn't come back in the film, but at the beginning of it, this was also directed by Rick Rosenthal, who directed a few in the series. He kills Laurie Strode in the beginning of this one. Stabs her in the stomach. She falls off the roof. We don't see if she actually died or not that it really matters, but she doesn't come back into the film. Again, in the next whatever follow-ups, when she comes back, she's just all of a sudden back, because again, these films don't count, and it picks up from where X film or whatever, whichever one they chose to go from. Generally, it was after the second. But yeah, it wasn't as star-studded as far as the actors as H2O. It had Jamie Lee Curtis again, like I said, but she was only there in the beginning. It had Busta Rhymes, Bianca Kalish or whatever. I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she was a well-known kind of face. She's the main character in this one, Sarah. Sean Patrick Thomas, Katie Sackhoff was one of my favorites, and Tyra Banks. Also, there was one of the guys from American Pie was in this. Thomas Ian Nicholas. Yes. Yeah, that was some interesting faces, interesting characters. The premise to me was a little bit more creative in this one, even though it's been done to death since. It was one of those maybe first around that era that went this way, interjecting the reality TV factor into the Halloween franchise, where they're shooting at the Myers house. But a lot of that story didn't hold water, because all of a sudden there's a whole sewage system or whatever underneath the house, tunnels, not necessarily sewage, tunnels where he lives in, and you know what I mean? It's like the house is just a normal house, but when they're in it, they can't hear each other from room to room. How? Anyone screams or talks or whatever, you should hear it in the other rooms, because it's an old deserted house. There's no, there's nothing isolating sound. It's not a massive house. It's supposed to be, I don't know, up to say, even if at a stretch, it's like a 5-bedroom house. It's not that huge, but they make it look huge by doing what they're doing, and it just doesn't quite make sense. But there were elements to the story that were interesting, and also having the guy outside it, sort of her online friend, following and texting her when they see it online, and the whole online aspect of it was coming into mainstream society. All of a sudden, social media, etc., was not a factor. So it made it a little bit more interesting, and I enjoyed this film a little more than most people, I think, because I believe that on IMDb, the average score for it was 4 out of 10, and I thought, which is the
people
lowest.
Didn't like it.
Yeah, so it didn't do well in that regard. But yeah, for me, it's my number 5. And I just said before that my number 4 was H2O, Halloween H2O, 20 years later, so from 98.
My number 4 I talked about before. It's second installment of Rob Zombie from 2009, Halloween
That's
2.
Right.
And I talked about it. And Halloween Resurrection is actually my number 3 from going up the list.
So we flip-flopped those two, H2O
yes.
Yeah.
I agree with almost all of what you said about Resurrection. I give credit because they tried to put it in line with the times. I have the thing that bothers me the most about Resurrection is what I like to call murder realism. They should know better in 2002 how to shoot murder scenes. Michael Myers stabs people in the gut and they die instantly. It takes hours and even days to die from a stomach stabbing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't work. And they should have known better at the time. It's not the 80s anymore. It's 2002. They had films, many examples and many chances to do their research, and they just didn't do that. And that's the problem I had with Resurrection, alongside with everything, of course, you said. But it's my number 3.
So Halloween 2018, my number 3, and I believe I made a bit of a mistake when I said that your number 4 was Resurrection. Your number 4 was actually Halloween 2 from 2009. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and your number 3 was Resurrection. So we have our 3 to 12 now. Okay. We're into number 2 territory now, and it seems that we have the same top 2. I'm not sure about the order just yet, but I get a feeling I do know it. What was your number 2?
My number 2 was Halloween, 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween.
The original. Yep, same here. That's ding, ding, ding. That's the first, I think, film that we have at the exact same spot, which kind of means that our top 2 are the same. And again, it kind of reaffirms what I just said about Halloween 2018 being my number 3, and that everything from number 3 down had a lot more sort of serious issues than the top 2. The top 2 stand out as good films.
Yes.
The other ones less so.
The original film stands out as a good film mainly because the spirit in which it was made in. They had very little money. You kind of want to be on the set with them when you watch it.
Well, it just basically is. It's much easier to forgive any issues on a film that was made for $325,000. You can't really nitpick as much as you can with the others because everything outside of that film was made in the millions.
Yes.
I mean, $2.5 million was the lowest. So absolutely, yeah. It's not just the spirit. It's basically an indie film.
I mean, plus the fact that they had nothing to lean on. It wasn't a known franchise. They started something new. They gambled. They didn't know if it was going to succeed or not because it had nothing, for it. It was a new thing.
But that's just the thing. They didn't quite gamble. It's a very small gamble, 325,000. But it's a very much a a slasher film, and they just kind of let's call it invented a new character in Michael Myers with a bit of an interesting backstory and how it works. It has its flaws, no question.
Of course.
But okay, one flaw stood out to me at the beginning of the film after he kills his sister. His parents come back and he's outside standing there with a bloody knife and blood all over him or whatever in the clown suit with the mask on. And his parents just stand there at a distance from him, looking at him. The mother has her hands in her pockets and she just looks at him. And the father is on the other side of him, just looking at him. And the camera sort of pans away and they don't move. They just look at him. What parent does that? Any parent would first, run up to him, check that it's not him bleeding, that there's nothing wrong with him. If they think that he did something wrong, they would be shaking him. They would be taking the mask off him to see, a reaction from him to communicate. No, they just look at him. They're in shock. They didn't know their daughter was dead at this point. They just see their little son in a clown suit, covered in blood with a bloody knife in his hand, and they react by standing away from him as if he was doing some sort of a magic act that they're supposed to watch. I was like, why did they do that? That made no sense.
The emphasis was on composition. What they cared about in that sequence is the way the shot was laid out. They were focused on the shot, on what to get on frame. And that's forgivable because,
Well, it is and it isn't, because it's an easy fix. It wasn't something that they, needed to struggle with or anything.
Talk about easy fixes. The film is riddled with easy fixes. They even added errors in post. When he strangles his first victim in the car, for some reason, the guy editing the sound added her breathing sound. You don't breathe when you get strangled to death.
You don't?
No, you don't. Last time I checked.
Well, you just reminded me of something actually that was added in the 2018 version that never existed before. Michael grunting when he was killing his victims, he was grunting like a frustrated or a crazed killer.
Yeah.
That did not exist in any of the earlier films.
No, they took a page from Rob Zombie's because
But in Rob Zombies, he doesn't do that. He only does that in the 2018 one.
No, he does. He does.
No, he doesn't
No, he
grunt
doesn't grunt.
like a crazed whatever.
He's enraged. Michael Myers in the first film, he's not enraged. Rob Zombie is the first one who had him enraged.
Well, we'll talk about that soon enough. But yeah, the interesting thing is this is the only one in the franchise that directed by John Carpenter, the original. And let me just say that one of the reasons that he ranks so highly on my list as number 2 is also because of the brilliant soundtrack composed by John Carpenter.
All the way through.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before about easy fixes and decision making and all of that, it's still some pretty poor decisions from a filmmaker that has made several shorts and 2 features before this one. Halloween is his 3rd feature. Before that, he made Dark Star in 1974 and Assault on Precinct 13 in 1976. In a lot of this, I know it was low budget, but he should have known better. And the strange thing about it is, while I'm rating it at number 2 on this list, I don't rate it very highly in, all-time horror films. But on the other hand, John Carpenter, I kind of rate him highly because one of my top horror films of all time, that some people will argue, it's a sci-fi, is The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. It's the same director, but I think that The Thing is far and away superior, potentially the best horror film of all time, when compared to Halloween. Halloween is, to me, not great on that list. It's not very high, but within the Halloween films, it's my second best. And again, it's not terrible in any way. It has its issues, but it's pretty good horror film. Previously I've talked about it and I say, it's not a good film. It's not this, it's not that. I'm not quite as adamant about it, after a couple of rewatches. I think certain things that bothered me about it before bother me less these days. But the one thing that bothered me the most about it is that Michael Myers makes strange choices. He kind of kills without reason, while the story tries to tell us that there is reason. He's going back home, he's looking for his sister, blah, blah, blah. But he stops along the way and goes into houses and kills people and does things. And don't forget the big thing that is even mentioned in the film, yet is still sort of passed over, is the fact that how the hell did he know how to drive a car? His escape. And not only that car gets driven around Haddonfield throughout the film and nobody notices. Even Donald Pleasance, at one point, he's standing on the street and the car is parked across the street and he doesn't notice the car when he was the one driving it originally. So he should have definitely spotted it. So, again, it has its fault, and this is probably nitpicking. Amongst this list, amongst this franchise, it is fairly clearly to me the second best film.
Generally speaking, Michael Myers likes to watch. He waits before he kills, just to give you the slow burn, the suspense, which makes no sense in most of the installments. But in this one, you can argue that he was butchering Laurie's friends in that house because he was setting a trap. He wanted to lure Laurie in that house. The whole thing was for Laurie.
And again, some of the characters that came back in Halloween Kills, not many, but was one of them was Lindsay, who's the one we talked about in Halloween Kills. She's actually in this original. I think that because of all the remakes and reboots and everything, I think they just really mucked up this whole franchise, because every time they're saying, okay, don't worry about these films, don't count them. We start from here and then we start from there, and then it's not consecutive. It's rebooted several times almost from zero, but not from zero. Although our number one, which is now our number one, because fairly clear we both rated it the same, being Rob Zombie's 2007 version, is the one that really reboots it from the beginning. Even more so, it goes back. It's almost
it's an origin story.
Yes. It's almost there's like a prequel element, and I think that's what I liked about it. It went and looked, I think, at Halloween, the original, and the sequels, and thought, what was wrong with those films? Where is the problem? And the problem is that Michael Myers has no backstory. We don't know who he is. We don't know why he does what he does, and all the rest of it, and kind of made that happen for us. The mistake was that while in this one he built it up beautifully, that this sort of psycho kid, who's both a victim of his environment and also naturally, messed up, is a kid. It's psychological issues. And then in his own sequel, he makes it into some sort of a supernatural element, that wasn't there.
It's like
but purely on the story that we're talking about, this is by far to me the best film of the franchise, even though a lot of people hate on it.
First of all, it's a breath of fresh air, and I can see it. If there was no such thing as a Halloween franchise, and this film was a standalone film, this would be the first time you see a Michael Myers film. It would still hold. It's a good film, and I think in the construction of the story, there's a lot of solutions to problems that you can easily have oversights in previous films. Rob Zombie had to make it believable that a 10-year-old child can kill 3 fairly adults, without anybody getting wise. He built the anatomy of the scene. He built it in a way that you believe it. Not only that, when Michael acts, then his victims react in a very believable manner. He hits his sister's boyfriend in the head, so he's a teenager, and Michael's 10. But the reason why he can overcome him and hit him and kill him is because the blow to the head causes the boy to go into anaphylactic shock. He starts convulsing, and then he finishes the job and bashes his head. So you believe that this 10-year-old kid can take a teenage boy, and he kills his stepdad by slitting his throat, but he ties him, and he does something that I talked about before. He stabs his sister in the gut. She doesn't die immediately. Zombie takes you through the entire painful experience of her slowly meeting her demise as he finishes the job. Very well done.
And that realism that you're talking about also necessitated the gore. With the sister, he stabs her in the stomach, stabs her in the back. She still tries to escape because the survival instinct is so strong in people. And she's crawling along the corridor, blood everywhere. The father, like you said, he ties him up while he's asleep and drunk or whatever, before he kills him, because he knows that if the father is free to try to protect himself, there's a chance that he will lose that fight. So that makes it a lot more realistic and a lot more interesting. Also, they went with a boy that passes for 10 years old, but for a big 10-year-old, he's a big kid. And I thought
he looks like bad news.
Casting this kid was really good for this. That kid is really good. I haven't really seen him since, but also Scout Taylor Compton as Laurie Strode, really good in this. Really believable. Tyler Mane as Michael Myers was good, I thought, as well. There was something about, I think he's the best Michael Myers, actually. Out of all the people who played him. Brad Dourif as the Sheriff Brackett, he was good. I mean, he's a bullet like Brad Dourif, but in this, he was good. It worked. Sherry Moon Zombie as Deborah Myers worked. She is really good.
Yes.
And it had several other sort of appearances, cameos, whatever. Danny Trejo and Udo Kier and William Forsythe and Richard Lynch and Lou Temple. And the one that and Bill Moseley is in there. There's sort of the and Daniel Harris, of course, but a lot of the Rob Zombie sort of usual suspects. But the one that bothered me again is Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis. Not so much that he was cast in that role. I didn't actually have a problem with that. I like Malcolm McDowell, but the way Loomis is written, I had a big problem with that. The reason is because Loomis is portrayed here as kind of a fame whore. He will do anything to prolong his 15 minutes of fame, and that's all he's really concerned about, and nothing else. Not Michael, not the story behind Michael as such. It doesn't fascinate him or whatever in a way like he did with the Donald Pleasance portrayal. It's just a meal ticket. It just didn't come off as real. There's something about Zombie's characters in his films that it's almost like a freak show. go. They're all a bit weird. They're all this, they're all that. There's a bit of a grotesque element to it. And I think that's what this character was. And it just didn't work, I think, in this. But again, it didn't ruin the film enough.
No, it didn't. But I think he made him like that because maybe he thought that having the good doctor have very human flaws as a capitalist prick. Then I think when he comes to save the day, he comes to warn the sheriff and to stop Michael Myers. He gives him an arc. I'm doing this to exploit this psychotic killer in order to make a buck. And no, I can't ignore my obligation as a doctor and a citizen to stop the carnage. So maybe that's what he was thinking when he wrote Loomis as he did.
It might have been what he was thinking. It was still not written well enough to be believable. It just didn't work. Another actor or a couple of actors that I forgot to mention. There was a really nice addition. Daryl Sabara plays the other kid that picks on him. He's been in a lot of stuff. Clint Howard is in this, and of course, one of my favorites to see in this, Dee Wallace, who plays the Strode adopting mother.
Yeah, I love the dynamics between characters. The dynamics are they feel organic, they feel natural. You forget you're watching a film. I'm talking about the relationships between Laurie and her step parents. Characters.
Yeah. They gave it a little bit of a stage. They gave them some scenes and made them sort of personable and likable. And then when they get killed, we care about them more. Which is script writing 101, really, and it doesn't exist in a lot of the other films. Speaking of zombie regulars, Ken Foree is in this as well, playing Big Joe Grizzly. In that scene in the public toilet.
Yes.
And also Daniel Roebuck is in this, and of course the late great Sid Haig has a bit of a cameo there at the
Gravekeeper.
Small appearances. Courtney Gaines is in this, but it's really all these appearances and whatever, I think, also added to the film. It was not really much of an addition as far as the film would have dropped down the list without them or anything like that, but it was really, really nice to see all these people. And again, where in some instances, like like I'm saying, especially the one about Loomis, that character wasn't well written, I thought. The rest of them were in this one. And again, the big letdown was that in his own sequel, Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie was really terrible. Also because this one was so good. So we made it to number one. Anything else you want to say about the franchise or about any one of the films that we haven't said yet?
I think most was said. I just didn't mention my stance outside this franchise. I'm not the biggest fan of the whole Halloween franchise because I look for different things when I go watch horror films. I love horror films, but I just don't. I didn't connect with it as its hardcore fans did. I think it is very overrated, and to each his own, but it's ironic to me that people deem the original Halloween is the best horror film of all time, while you said before its director John Carpenter is responsible in my mind for the best horror film of all times, which is not that. It's not Halloween, it's The Thing, 1982.
I agree with with most of what you said there. It's I think, again, I've made this distinction before on other people's podcasts, in interviews and stuff. You have two camps. You have your horror fans and you have your film fans. Now, film fans will like films of any genre, but they will look at them as a film. They will look at all these aspects that we talk about, from script to acting to, logic and errors and whatever, and we're less forgiving of a lot of these things. Whereas horror fans, they just want a bit of a fun ride. They just want to be a little bit scared and a little bit something else, but mostly entertained. And they are very easy to please. That is true, which is why they like these films. This is their thing, and I can't say I have a problem with it. But if any horror fan wants to argue with me that the original Halloween is really a good film or a better film than other films, then we're going to have an argument. But having said that, our opinion about, quality or non-quality, I think that Halloween originally, as a franchise, I think they wanted to make films for horror fans to watch during Halloween. I think that is almost why in the first Halloween films, there's always a Halloween film playing in the background. There are always characters who are watching films on Halloween with their popcorn, masks, whatever, carved pumpkins, that whole sort of tradition. When I think about it that way, and if people who do celebrate Halloween, in Australia here, we don't really celebrate it. And I think for you guys, like in Israel, I know that's not really a thing, but it's a very, very American thing.
Yeah.
If an American or anyone else actually celebrating Halloween would ask me, would you recommend that I, marathon a few Halloween films during Halloween night or whatever? I would say, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly what those films were made for. I would go and recommend which ones I think are more worthy, which ones are more suitable for that kind of viewing, where you just kind of have fun with it. Throw popcorn at the screen if you want to, that kind of thing, and just not begrudgingly, just as fun. Then yes, this franchise works in that way. Having said that, it was a bit of fun watching 12 films over a couple of weeks. Most of them, if not all of them, rewatches. Oh, sorry, no, not all of them, because Halloween Kills I saw for the first time. I enjoyed it for the most part, even though I don't think a lot of these films are great films. They were still fun. So I had fun with it. So recapping, my top 12, at number 12, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch from 1982. I just want to sort of reiterate something I said before. Again, I don't think it's the worst film on this list. It's probably my least favorite as far as a Halloween film of this franchise, not the season. I thought it just kind of was the odd one out, which is why I let it drop. It would have always ended up in my bottom 3 for story reasons. The plot is just a bit weird for me. Didn't quite work. But, I'm kind of a little bit fond of that film. But yeah, it's still my number 12. The one that I had the most problem with is my number 11, which is Halloween Kills from this year, 2021. Yeah, I thought it was just too problematic. My number 10 is Halloween 2 from 2009, Rob Zombie's second film, Rob Zombie's sequel. At number 9, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989. At number 8, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, 1995. Number 7, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, 1988. My number 6 is Halloween 2 from 1981, the first sequel. At number 5, Halloween Resurrection from 2002. At number 4, Halloween H2O, 20 years later, from 1998. At number 3, Halloween, the 2018 reboot, the Blumhouse production. At number 2, the original 1978 Halloween. And at number 1, Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween. That's my top 12. So Asaf, you want to run us through your top 12 again?
Sure. Okay. My number 12 is Halloween 2 from 1981. My number 11 is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995. Number 10 is Halloween 2018. Number 9 is Halloween Kills. Number 8 is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch from 1982. Halloween Kills from 2021. Number 7 is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989. Number 6 is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers from 1988. Number 4 is Rob Zombie's second installment, Halloween 2 from 2009. Number 3 is Halloween Resurrection from 2002. Number 2 was the original Halloween from 1978. And number 1, Rob Zombie's first installment, Halloween from 2007.
Excellent. So that's us. Thank you, Asaf, for for the input and for the conversation today. Just let me say, happy Halloween to everyone listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, thank you, Asaf, for being here, for guest hosting.
Happy to be here.
So happy Halloween, everyone, and you'll hopefully hear us again very, very soon with a new episode. See you then.
Thanks for listening to the Best and Worst podcast.
We'd like to thank everyone who joined and listened to the show. We appreciate you all and hope you'll keep coming back for following episodes. A big thank you goes out to Heinjus for helping us out tremendously and voicing our intro, and Scott Martin for working his magic on the intro sound edit. Also, a big thank you goes out to Asaf Angel for all the help with the logo design. Great work, everyone. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you.
If you like the show, then please recommend the podcast to your family and friends, and subscribe, share, follow, leave a comment. You know the drill. For more information, please check out the show notes. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week.